The goal of every business is for it to be able to run successfully and efficiently, whether or not you are there. So just remember, you don't run a business, you run a system, and the system runs your business. Welcome back to the Leaders Only podcast, where we talk about business, leadership, mindset, and just pretty much anything revolved around building an incredible life. One of the reasons that I started this podcast is because I felt like on the way to where we're at now, there wasn't really a place to go to learn tangible skills that are needed in order to succeed and further yourself and just get better overall in every area of your life. And so some background about me, I built a sales company that does over 8 figures a year. I own over $10 million worth of real estate, and I've built a multiple 7-figure income that's streamlined and in all honesty doesn't really need me. I plan on teaching you and documenting everything that I learned along the way. And if you get something out of today's message, if you can do me a favor, if you can like, share, and subscribe, it will give us the ability to further our message and help more people, which is what we're all about. Thank you guys so much. Let's dive in. One of the things that we all want to do is build a business that can run with or without us. And here's the deal. Unfortunately, most people are in a position where their business is dependent on them. And if the business is dependent on you, that means the business owns you and you don't own the business. And what do I mean by that? If you have to be there, do you really own the business? Not really, because the business is dependent on you. So if you aren't there, there is no business, which means we have to position ourselves in a place where things can run efficiently and successfully, whether or not we are there. And the only way to do that is if we get more systemized, which is what we're going to be discussing today. So why is having a system so important? We've all heard the acronym before that system stands for save yourself time, energy, and money. And as cheesy as that sounds, it's the truth. That's exactly what a system does. It saves you time, saves you energy, it saves you money. And time, energy, and money are some of the most valuable things that you can ever have. So if they're the most valuable things that you can ever have, wouldn't it make sense to save as much of it as we possibly can? Absolutely. So we have to systemize things for that reason. The second reason why we have to systemize things is because systems remove thinking, which accelerates execution. Let me say it again. Systems remove thinking, and the removal of thinking accelerates execution. Think about it. If you have to think about what you need to do next, is that slowing you down or speeding you up? It's slowing you down because you now have to think about, what am I supposed to be doing? How do I do it? Why should I be doing it? All these questions start to come up, which means you end up being a sitting duck like a deer in headlights, wondering what you're supposed to do next. But if things are systemized and you never have to question what the next step is, now guess what? That speeds up execution, which accelerates your business. The third reason on why we have to systemize everything is because systems shorten the gap between point A and point B. Let me explain. System is a lot like a GPS, meaning if I was going to drive across country, there's a lot of different routes that I can take. But are they the most efficient route? Probably not. And if I don't have an exact route, guess what's going to happen? I'm going to probably end up getting lost. I'm going to probably hit a dead end. I'm going to get stuck. I might go a slower route. It's just not the most efficient way to get from where I'm at to where I need to be. So that's what a system does. So what a system does is it cuts the fat. It gets rid of anything that doesn't need to be there so you can follow the exact course, the exact road necessary in order to arrive at the destination the fastest. So we need to systemize things because once again, it shortens the gap between point A and point B, giving you the ability to arrive at the destination a heck of a lot sooner. So what are the 3 main areas that we need to systemize? Number 1, our volume. We need to systemize the volume in which our clients come from and the volume in which our agents come from if we're in some type of recruiting business. We have to systemize where we get our clients and systemize where we get our new agents and our new recruits in a recruiting business. That has to happen because if things are not organized on where the volume's coming from, once again, everyone's scatterbrained running around everywhere looking for new clients, looking for new agents, and that is not a recipe for success. So we have to systemize the volume. The second thing that we have to do is systemize our sales process. Because if things are out of whack and everyone's saying something different or doing something different, well then guess what? That slows down duplication, which will then slow down distribution, which will then slow down revenue and profits. So we got to systemize our sales process so everyone's doing the same thing. What this also does is make sure that every single prospect or every single client is getting the best possible service that someone can get. Number 3, we need to systemize our training process. And we want to look at it almost as if it's a factory where raw material goes in on one side of the conveyor belt and on the other side of the conveyor belt comes this polished product that knows exactly what it is that they're doing. And that's how our training process needs to be, where everything's systemized, everything's easy to learn, and it's factory-like so you can mass produce at the highest levels. Because can we all agree, if you're in a sales business and or if you're in a business that's all about recruiting and increasing distribution, can we all agree that the more people we have doing the same thing, the more people we have that are able to distribute the product, the more product that we're going to distribute? Of course, but that won't happen if we don't systemize our training process so that way everyone can learn and develop quickly. I want people to learn quickly. I want people to develop quickly, because the faster we develop people, the faster they can get out there executing, distributing product, bringing in revenue, which ultimately leads to, once again, more profits. So we have to systemize our training process. So what are the 7 ways that we can improve our systems, or what are some standards that we need to have when implementing systems? That's what I'm going to go over next. So number 1, complication is the enemy of duplication. If you want to duplicate at the highest level, I'm talking about the highest level, then guess what? Complexity and complication is your enemy. The more complicated something is, the more difficult it is for something to learn, the more steps that there are, the harder it's going to be for you to duplicate. So we want to keep things as simple as possible, because the simpler we keep things and the less complicated things are, the easier it's going to be able to duplicate at mass levels. Number 2, never implement a system that cannot handle higher volume. A huge mistake that I used to make all the time is that I would implement a system and it would work for 3, 4, 5 months until we all of a sudden had a heck of a lot more volume, and then our current system couldn't handle that volume anymore. So whenever implementing a system, you want to make sure that that system can handle high volume, or what's going to happen is 3, 4, 5, 6 months down the line, when you have more volume, now you have to change the system, you have to redo the system, and now everyone has to learn a brand new operating procedure, which is no bueno when it comes to scaling and duplicating. So anytime you're going to implement a new system, it has to be able to handle high volume, or you should not implement that standard. Number 3, script everything. Script the sales process, script the recruiting process, script the system process, script the customer service process, script everything that you possibly can. Because if I'm a brand new person and I hear agent A say one thing, and then person B say another, and then person C say something else, as a new person, I don't know what I should and or shouldn't be saying. And if I don't know what I should and or shouldn't be saying, then guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to try to learn all 3 things. And do you think it's going to take longer for me to learn one thing or 3 things? Obviously, it's going to take longer for me to learn 3 things, which is going to slow down the duplication process once again. So we got to get to a point where everyone's saying the same thing, where it's everybody's marching to the same beat, verbatim, word for word. And what that's going to do, it's going to streamline things and make it a lot easier for everyone to learn. It's also going to remove all confusion, because confusion slows things down. Because whenever you're in a position where you're thinking, what should I do? What should I be saying? Well, then guess what? Once again, you're thinking. And the more someone has to think, the slower the duplication process. So script everything. Number 4, create a standard operating procedure so everyone always knows what their next step is. A huge mistake that I see people make is they give people a checklist of 7 things to do at the same time. That's not good when it comes to systemizing things. It should be very simple. Complete task 1, go to task 2. Complete task 2, go to task 3. Complete task 3, go to task 4. The more step-by-step things are, the easier it becomes for people to climb the ladder of success. So create standard operating procedures where everyone always knows what their next step is, because once again, if people have to think about, what's my next step? Where do I find my next step? Guess what? You're going to have a whole bunch of people moving slower. And to be completely honest with you, most people do not have the confidence to go ask what their next step is, because they're afraid that they're supposed to know it already. So if you don't give them a clear understanding of what their next step is, they're naturally going to slow down, and most likely they won't ask for help because they're too embarrassed to. So you want to remove that, and you want to streamline things by creating standard operating procedures where everyone always knows what their next step is. Number 5, systemize anything that's important so you don't forget it. A huge mistake that I used to make all the time is that I would create a new procedure, or I would create a new operating system, and then I would forget to systemize it. And so what would happen is I would think everyone's running it because I mentioned it once or I said it one time. Come to find out 3, 4, 5 months later that not everyone was doing it because I said it once and they forgot about it. So anything that's important, build it into your system so that way it's step 4 or step 5 or step 6. Or if it's an announcement that's very important, or a standard that you're trying to create in your organization, kind of like what I talked about in a previous podcast, build it into your announcements. So that way you're saying it every week and you're not having to remember to say it every single week. So once again, if it's important and it can't be forgotten, systemize it so that way you always have it in front of you, because if it's always in front of you, you won't forget about it. Number 6, stop trying to be cute. It's okay to say the same thing over and over and over again. A huge mistake that I see people make in business is they always try to repackage the same message in a different wrapping. The problem with this is every single time you say something one way, and then you say it another way, and then you say it another way, just because you're trying to make what you're saying more interesting, you actually slow down reproduction. And the reason you slow things down is because if you say it this way, and then you say it another way, now every person that heard you say it the way before goes to the drawing board to try to relearn the new way that you just went over it, which isn't good, because now you have a whole bunch of people that are spending time, energy, and money that could be going towards learning a new skill or a new ability that's going to help them be better at what they're already doing. And now they're just trying to relearn the same piece of information. So you have to be willing to say the same thing over and over. Business is not about saying new things to old people. It's about saying the same old things to new people so new people can learn. But what it also does is it allows you to hold the old people accountable to make sure that they continue to say and do the same thing over and over and over as well. That way, everyone's on the same page. So stop trying to be cute and stop trying to repackage everything. And last but not least, number 7, you can't be so good that you're no good. And this is a huge mistake that I see people make, especially people in leadership, because the way that they got into a leadership role is because they had success and because they were really good. The problem is if they are so good that nobody feels like they can be like them or do what they're doing, well then guess what? We failed in leadership, because our job and your job as a leader is to empower other people to feel like they can succeed. But if you're so good that people can't feel like they can duplicate you, well then guess what? That's actually discouraging. And if people don't feel like they can do what you do or get the result that you're getting, they just won't try at all. And that's failure in the duplication process. So you want to keep things so simple and so easy that when people look at you, they're like, oh my gosh, I can do that. That's not hard at all. That's simple. That's easy. That's what you want. You don't want people to be impressed by you. You want people to be impressed by how simple things are. Let me say it again. You don't want people to be impressed by you. You want people to be impressed by how simple things are. And that can only happen if you make sure that you're not so good that you're no good. So like I mentioned earlier, the goal of every business is for it to be able to run successfully and efficiently, whether or not you are there. So just remember, you don't run a business, you run a system, and the system runs your business. So look back at the 7 things that I went over and ask yourself, on a scale of 1 to 10, how systemized am I? Where are my holes? What do I need to fix? What adjustments do I need to make? Because right now, if you're complicated or it's not systemized, I promise you, raw pieces of material are falling through the cracks and it's affecting production, it's affecting distribution, which obviously affects everything when it comes to revenue and profits. So systemize your business, streamline things even more, and I promise you, you'll have a lot more success. And if you guys can do me a favor, once again, if you got something out of today's message, if you can like, share, and subscribe, that'd mean the absolute world to us. Obviously, once again, we do this for free, and the only way for us to expand our message and help more people is if you share our stuff. So if you guys can do that, that would be amazing. And with that being said, I'll see you guys next week.